Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive that'll totally change how you think about what's possible?
Yeah, we're going to a place where the sky's not the limit, literally.
We're talking about Yirra Airtime in Australia. They're helping people with all sorts of challenges, mobility issues, brain injuries, disabilities, actually experience paragliding.
It's incredible, isn't it? People who are often told no are up there soaring like birds.
I know, it's mind-blowing, and we'll get into all the details of how they make it happen. But first, a little background for anyone not familiar. Yirra Airtime is a program run by Yirra Care. They're based in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia.
And they're all about empowering folks, creating opportunities, and they do way more than just paragliding.
Oh yeah, we've got their contact info in the show notes for those who want to dig deeper. Phone number, email, the works. But yeah, they've got NDIS support, which helps connect people with disability services and funding from the government.
Right, and community access programs to help people, access their communities.
So they're really committed to making a difference, which is awesome. But let's get back to the main attraction, Yirra Airtime and paragliding. What makes their approach so unique?
It's not just about, strapping someone in and hoping for the best.
No, definitely not.
They've really thought about it, adaptive equipment, specialized harnesses, modified controls. They've got tandem paragliders that they can adjust to fit different needs.
Wow, so someone who maybe thought flight was impossible could actually be up there experiencing it.
Exactly. I read this story about a guy with a spinal cord injury. He said his first flight with Yirra Airtime was pure liberation, like shedding all those limitations and rediscovering freedom.
Wow, I'm getting chills just hearing that. So it sounds like it's about so much more than just the physical act of paragliding.
Yeah, it's about pushing boundaries, changing how we think about things and reclaiming that sense of agency, but also the journey, the whole experience, not just the destination.
Okay, I am officially hooked. Tell me, walk me through what it would be like from that first contact with Yirra Care all the way to taking that first flight.
Well, it starts with a consultation. They want to understand each person, what they need, what they're hoping for. It's about building that trust.
So it's really personalized, not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Exactly. Then there's an assessment. They'll look at physical abilities, any medical stuff, and the level of support needed. Safety first, but also making sure everyone can enjoy the experience.
That makes sense, a thorough approach. I have to admit, I'm not super familiar with paragliding itself. How does it even work?
It's kind of like, imagine a really advanced kite.
Okay, listen.
So you've got this big wing-shaped canopy. It fills with air, creates lift.
Yeah.
The pilot's strapped in, using lines and handles to control the wing.
So they're actually steering and everything.
Yeah, they shift their weight, use those controls. They can go up, down, even do maneuvers.
That's a lot more complex than I thought. And I can see why training is so important, especially for someone with a disability.
Oh, definitely. And that's where Yirra Care's instructors come in. They're really good at adapting the techniques, the equipment, to work for different abilities.
That's amazing. Okay, so after the assessment, what happens next?
Well, then they'll get you ready for that first flight. There's an orientation, you get familiar with the gear, learn some basic safety stuff. They'll give you tips on what to wear and all that.
Like what kind of clothes?
Yeah, comfy layers, because it can get chilly up there. Sturdy, closed-toe shoes, too. You don't want to be worried about your feet dangling hundreds of feet in the air.
No, definitely not. And I'm guessing the instructors are there through it all, answering questions and making sure everyone feels comfortable.
Absolutely. Okay, now, for that first flight, imagine standing on a hill, the wind's catching the paraglider above you, and then you get the signal, take a few steps, and you're lifted up.
Wow, I can almost feel it.
It's so smooth, almost effortless. And as you go higher, the world just opens up beneath you. It's breathtaking.
I bet it is. But for someone who's maybe nervous or scared of heights even, how do they handle that?
That's where tandem paragliding is amazing. You're not alone up there. You've got this experienced instructor with you, controlling everything. They're there to guide you, make sure you feel safe.
So even someone with a fear of heights could still try it.
Absolutely. It's all about going at your own pace, building confidence. And, a lot of times that initial fear just turns into pure joy once you're up there, soaring like a bird.
What an incredible way to challenge yourself. So we've talked about the tandem experience, but I hear there's even more to this story, right?
There is. Yirra Airtime actually has a way for people to not just experience paragliding, but to become solo pilots.
Wow. Okay, now that's taking things to a whole other level.
Imagine going from that first tandem flight to controlling the paraglider yourself, making decisions, maneuvering through the air. It's the ultimate freedom.
I have so many questions about how that even works, especially for people with disabilities.
It's truly remarkable. It's called their solo pilot training program. And that's a story we'll dive into a little later.
You're killing me with suspense.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get to the solo pilot stuff, let's talk about who can join those tandem flights.
It's open to anyone with a mobility disability, brain injury, neurological condition, chronic physical limitations, you name it.
So even if someone's never even considered paragliding before,
Yeah.
this could be their chance.
Exactly. They really encourage people with no experience to come explore, breaking down those barriers, showing that adventure is for everyone.
That's such a powerful message. Now, let's talk about cost.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are wondering how much something like this would be.
A tandem flight with Yirra Airtime costs around $300.
That's actually less than I expected for something so unique and impactful.
Right. They really try to make it accessible, and they're super transparent. Any questions about pricing, just reach out. They're happy to give you personalized info.
So before we get into that amazing solo pilot training program, I think it's worth taking a moment to just appreciate what Yirra Airtime is doing. It's so much more than an activity. It's truly transforming lives.
You got it. They're empowering people, creating community, and really challenging how society sees what's possible.
And proving that when we open our minds to possibilities, the sky really isn't the limit.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You know, it's amazing how Yirra Airtime is shifting the conversation, like moving away from what people can't do and focusing on possibilities.
It's so inspiring. Okay, I can't wait any longer. Let's talk about that solo pilot training program. People with disabilities learning to fly solo, it seems almost impossible.
I know, right? But they make it happen. And it starts with, a really thorough assessment. They look beyond just physical abilities.
Oh, interesting. What else do they consider?
Well, things like mental aptitude, problem solving, emotional readiness, stuff like that. They want to make sure each person can not only fly, but fly safely and responsibly.
So it's a lot more than just physical strength. There's a big mental aspect too.
Exactly. They're looking for folks who are determined, resilient, adaptable, all those things that are important for a pilot,
Makes sense. So once someone's in the program, what's the training actually like?
It's a journey, that's for sure. It's intense, comprehensive, and they tailor it to each person's needs and learning style. It starts with ground school.
Ground school, like what is that?
Yeah, they learn all the theory stuff first, paragliding basics, weather, aerodynamics, safety protocols, the whole 9 yards.
So they're really getting a deep understanding of how it all works.
Yeah, they don't mess around. But it's not all just books and lectures. There are hands-on sessions too.
Oh, like what?
Well, they practice ground handling techniques, learn to control the paraglider on the ground, practice takeoffs and landings, all that good stuff.
I bet that's pretty challenging, especially for someone with a physical limitation.
It can be, yeah. But that's where Yirracare's ingenuity really shines. They've got these adaptive techniques, modified equipment, special harnesses, all kinds of things to make it work for different disabilities.
It's incredible how they keep innovating and finding solutions.
I know, right? And through it all, safety is the top priority. The instructors are all super experienced, really skilled at adapting their teaching methods.
I bet it's so rewarding for them to see their students progress and overcome challenges.
Yeah, definitely. But it's not just the instructors. There are also social workers and pilot support workers or PSWs involved.
Oh, that's interesting. What do they do?
They provide a holistic support system. It's not just about the physical learning. They're there for the emotional and social stuff too.
That makes a lot of sense, helping people cope, build confidence, deal with any fears that come up.
Exactly. So it's a real team effort, everyone working together to create the supportive, empowering environment.
I love that. And then as the training goes on, do they eventually start actually flying?
Oh yeah. So it starts with ground practice, then they move on to tandem flights with an instructor, and eventually, when they're ready, supervised solo flights.
Wow, that first solo flight must be an incredible moment.
I can only imagine. There was this story about a woman with cerebral palsy. She always dreamed of flying but thought it was impossible. And then, during her first solo flight, she was up there with tears streaming down her face. She said it was the most liberating experience of her life.
It's so much more than just learning a skill. It's like they're rediscovering themselves, rewriting their stories.
That's it, exactly. It's about empowerment, challenging those limitations, embracing new possibilities. And it's not just about the individual. It affects their families, their communities, society as a whole.
It's about shifting perceptions, showing everyone what people with disabilities are truly capable of.
You got it. And speaking of achieving amazing things, let's talk about what happens after someone finishes the solo pilot training program. What's next for them?
Yeah, once they've got the skills, had an amazing first solo flight, what then?
Well, the program prepares them for a recreational pilot license. It's recognized by, the official Australian Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association.
Wow, so they're not just flying for fun, they're becoming certified pilots.
It's incredible, right? It opens up so many doors. They can join clubs, do competitions, or just enjoy flying solo whenever they want.
The ultimate freedom. But let's be real, learning to paraglide, especially to that level, must take a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, it's definitely a commitment. We're talking hours of ground school, practice sessions, flights, all spread out over several months.
So it's not just a quick thing, it's a real journey.
Absolutely. And that's part of what makes it so special, that process of learning, pushing yourself, overcoming those challenges, and ultimately transforming.
And I'm guessing they have a lot of support along the way from the instructors, the social workers, the PSWs, even their fellow trainees. It sounds like a really tight-knit community.
Oh, for sure. There's this amazing camaraderie. Everyone's in it together, supporting each other, celebrating successes, helping each other through the tough parts.
It reminds us that we all need that, that sense of community, that tribe to support us.
Absolutely. And, it's important to remember that Yirra Airtime's impact goes way beyond just the individuals who participate.
What do you mean?
Well, they're changing perceptions, challenging societal norms, showing the world that people with disabilities aren't defined by what they can't do, but by their dreams and what they achieve.
It's about creating a more inclusive and equitable world for everyone.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to share stories like Yirra Airtime, to raise awareness, inspire others, and promote understanding.
Hearing all this has really made me think about the limitations we often place on ourselves and others. It's easy to get stuck in what we think we can't do. But Yirra Airtime shows us that anything is possible when we push past those limits.
It's all about changing that mindset from I can't to how can I?
That's such a powerful message for everyone, honestly.
So I'm curious, what stands out to you as the most remarkable thing about all of this?
I think it's that ripple effect. We talk about how it affects the individuals, the freedom they feel, the growth, the confidence, but it goes beyond that. Their families see them differently, their communities start to recognize their abilities, and those perceived limitations just start to fade away. It's like they're breaking through a barrier, not just for themselves, but for how everyone sees disability.
Right, it's changing the narrative, and that's why sharing stories like Yirra Airtime is so crucial.
Yeah, when we see people with disabilities doing these amazing things, it makes us question our assumptions, those limits we put on people.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, what limits do we unconsciously place on ourselves or others? And how can we help break down those barriers?
That's what I love about these deep dives. It's not just about learning facts, it's about thinking differently, having conversations, and hopefully inspiring action. Speaking of action, what can our listeners do if they're feeling inspired? Maybe they want to experience this for themselves or support the organization or just spread the word.
Well, the Yirra Care website is the best place to start. We'll put the link in the show notes. You can find info about their programs, read stories from participants, even donate to support their mission.
And hey, if you're feeling adventurous and happen to be in Australia, why not reach out to them about a tandem flight? It could be life-changing.
Or who knows, maybe it'll spark a passion for paragliding and you'll end up becoming a solo pilot yourself. It's never too late to chase those dreams, no matter the challenges.
That's a perfect thought to leave everyone with. Yirra Airtime shows us that limitations are often just in our minds or created by society. When we break free from those, embrace inclusivity and possibility, that's when we can really soar.
So think about it. What perceived limitations are holding you back? What would it take to challenge those and unlock new possibilities in your own life?
Because as Yirra Airtime so beautifully proves, the sky's not the limit. There are footprints on the moon. Keep exploring, keep challenging, and keep reaching for the stars.
It's amazing how Yirra Airtime is shifting the conversation, like moving away from what people can't do and focusing on possibilities.
It's true. We tend to focus on what people can't do rather than what they can do. Yirra Airtime flips that script completely.
Yeah, they're like, hey, let's focus on abilities, on aspirations, on what makes people happy, what gives them that sense of accomplishment, and it really works, doesn't it?
Totally. What's the most remarkable thing about this whole thing for you?
Honestly, it's that ripple effect. We talked about how it impacts the people who participate, that feeling of freedom, their growth, the confidence they gain. But it goes way beyond that, right?
Right. Their families start to see them in a whole new light. Their communities start to recognize their abilities. And suddenly, all those perceived limitations they kind of just fade away.
It's like breaking a glass ceiling, you know? Not just for the people paragliding, but for how we all see disability.
It's about changing the narrative.
Yeah.
And that's why sharing stories like Yirra Airtimes is so important.
Because when we hear these stories, when we see those images of people with disabilities soaring, it changes our assumptions, doesn't it? Makes us question the limits we often impose, sometimes without even realizing it.
Yeah, got me thinking. What limitations do I unconsciously put on myself or others? How can I help break down those barriers in my own life?
That's what I love about these deep dives. We learn new things, but we also reflect, have conversations, and hopefully get inspired to take action.
And speaking of action, what can our listeners do if they're feeling inspired by Yirra Airtime? Maybe they want to experience it themselves, support the organization, or just share this story.
Well, the Yirra Care website is a great place to start. We'll have the link in the show notes. People can find out more about their programs, read stories from participants, even donate if they want to support their mission.
And hey, if you're the adventurous type and you happen to be in Australia, why not reach out to them about booking a tandem flight? You never know. It could change your life.
Or spark a passion for paragliding that leads you to become a solo pilot. It's never too late to chase your dreams, no matter what challenges you face.
That's a perfect way to wrap this up. Yirra Airtime is a powerful reminder that limitations, so many of them, are things we create ourselves or that society puts on us. When we break free from that, when we embrace inclusivity and possibility, well, that's when we can truly soar.
So we leave you with this question. What limitations are holding you back? What would it take to challenge those and unlock new possibilities in your own life?
Because, as Yirra Airtime shows us, the sky's not the limit. There are footprints on the moon. Keep exploring, keep challenging yourselves, and keep reaching for the stars.
The power of the disability.